Have you noticed that things don't always turn out how you expect? Particularly at Christmas time, we might find that what we planned doesn't quite meet our expectations. Like every year, I think I'm going to get my house cleaned and decorated, all Christmassy, like it could be on Homes for the Holidays. And every year, I am lucky if I get the dishes washed and a tree put up, or a poinsettia, or something. And so I'm always vaguely dissatisfied with how I spend the Christmas season. Now, sometimes our disappointments are specific. Someone gets sick. Something you've planned and planned just doesn't work out. I think House Group A knows how that feels. These Trinity ornaments are not at all how they imagined when they ordered them. To their disappointment, what arrived was not quite what they expected. But sometimes our disappointment isn't even conscious. It's a stressed out feeling, or a shorter temper in the middle of things, or this let down feeling when things are all over, wondering whether this is really what it was supposed to be about, after all. Well, this year our Advent theme is keeping it real. Trying to find that meaning and that joy, that hope and even delight, not in the Christmas we might imagine or expect, but the one we actually live, which so often does not quite match the expectations. And so the question that meets us here right at the outset is, what are we really hoping for this season? Do you even know what you are hoping for? If you're hoping to merely survive, I think we might set our sights a little higher. If you're hoping for the perfect Christmas, I will suggest to you now you will most certainly be disappointed. But somewhere in the middle of that are the hopes that many of us hold, but we don't always even say out loud or acknowledge. So, are you hoping for relaxation? And if you are, do the activities you have planned allow for that to happen? Are you hoping to get through the season debt-free? If so, what are you doing about that? Are you hoping to enjoy good food? Or perhaps you want to create some lasting memories. Maybe your goal is only to meet everyone else's expectations about how the holidays should be celebrated. Your sister might think that Aunt Mary needs to be at your house this year, or the kids may have a particular idea about a certain present without which Christmas will be wrecked. Someone in your circle may think that it is merrier if more are added, while others might be looking for smaller and simpler gatherings. And how do all those expectations of everyone around you fit into your hopes and desires for the season? Or maybe what you are hoping for is a moment of connection, or an encounter with whatever or whomever you call God. Then again, after so much disappointment related to this season, I suspect that there are some who have stopped hoping for anything at all. I think the biblical Mary has some interesting things to teach us about hope and expectation. For Mary is going about her regular life when suddenly she is intruded upon by an angel who tells her she's going to have a baby. A surprise teenage pregnancy in this day and age can be scary and overwhelming and life-changing. In Mary's time, it was life-threatening. So this good news was not something she was expecting. Frankly, it was not something she was hoping for. This good news had only the potential to turn her life completely upside down. It asked her to put her needs aside and consider the needs of others. And in the hopes of her people, Mary was hardly one who might be expected to play a vital role. And yet, in the midst of expectations gone amok, Mary very quickly chooses and claims hope. She does not dissolve into despair, but resolves that she will look for something good to come. She will participate with God in wherever this is leading. And this is the difference, I think, between hope and expectation. Expectations are for a particular and a specific result. Expectations have definitions for how and when and what will happen. Hope, on the other hand, can be something that carries us when our expectations are not met. I think it was Søren Kierkegaard who said, "Faith sees best in the dark." And I might say the same about hope. Hope is what we find when we are in deep disappointment, when someone we counted on let us down, when the special Christmas dessert doesn't turn out, when prepared for plans get changed at the last minute. It is in those moments that hope allows us to look beyond our specific expectations, to trust that something good can come, even in the midst of our disappointment. In fact, I have a little story about that. It's actually our office administrator, Jackie's story, but she gave me permission to tell it to you. So, as we've been finding our moments to cut and put ribbons on tags for these Advent calendars, Jackie started to make a little plan this week about how she was going to spend her Friday night. Her family was away, so she was going to put on some TV, turn on a Christmas movie, enjoy a peaceful evening with a cup of tea and cutting out some tags. Her expectations were dashed, however, when she came up against some other expectations. Some of you may know that her mother is alone and has some confusion these days and needed some company Friday night. So off went Jackie with her tags in hand, lamenting that she was not going to get her lovely evening alone time. And how was she going to get these tags completed while she was tending to her mother? Why had she said she was going to do them at all? Well, what happened was not what she expected. It turned out that what was on these tags provided an evening full of conversation. As she'd put a ribbon on a tag, she'd read it out loud, and her mother would respond. It didn't matter if the question was the same as one she'd already heard. Sometimes the answers were repeated, and sometimes they were different, and it didn't really matter. Jackie said to me yesterday, it was a beautiful evening that she will remember for a very long time. And like Mary, that call invited her into the world instead of alone, protecting her time. And yet she was blessed beyond anything she could have ever imagined. Hope. It's not what you expect. Speaking of things you don't expect, it also reminds me of something I saw recently on a late-night comedy show, which is not exactly the place that comes to mind when you expect to find wisdom about faith. It was a conversation between Kerry Washington and Stephen Colbert, where she asked him if he ever has trouble staying hopeful in their current political climate. And he said, sure, but then he went on to say what I found was very interesting. He suggested that despair, not being hopeful, is the epitome of hubris. That it is arrogant for us to despair, because when you do that, you think for sure that you know what's going to happen. Many quoted Gandalf from Lord of the Rings and said, "For even the very wise cannot see all ends." Indeed, hope leaves room for something bigger than us, even, and maybe especially, in the face of our specific disappointments. We see this in the life of Jesus' mother, Mary. Mary's life did not go as she expected, or as she anticipated, or as anyone could have guessed. And as we know, her life from this moment was not any easier. But hope is not what you expect. In the story, Mary goes on to sing a song. Today we call it the Magnificat, where she proclaims her hope. My spirit rejoices in God, who's looked on the humble estate of this servant. Generations will call me blessed. God has brought down the mighty from their thrones, scattered the proud, remembered the forgotten. She names and claims a hope that she could participate with God in doing something new in her world that could change things for the better. It makes me wonder, what is our Magnificat? It seems to me that part of keeping it real at Christmas, embracing the blessings of this season in our actual lives, is sorting out our hopes and our expectations, and then name and claim them all for what they are. What are we expecting of ourselves and others? Do we know? And more importantly, what are we truly hoping for? And how will those hopes sustain us, whether or not I get around to getting a tree decorated, no matter what our ornaments look like? You see, hope, it's not what you expect. May God be with us on the journey. Amen.